What if the darkest moment in history was actually the moment everything was fulfilled? What if the silence of heaven wasn't absence but something deeper, something intentional? And what if the final breath of Jesus wasn't the end, but the turning point for all humanity? It was noon. The sun should have been at its brightest, the sky should have been clear, but something changed. Darkness came over the whole land, not for a moment, not for a passing cloud, but for 3 hours. From noon until 3 in the afternoon, everything was covered. The light faded, the atmosphere shifted. It was as if creation itself responded, as if something deeper was unfolding. People must have noticed. Whispers, confusion, fear, because this wasn't normal, this wasn't expected. And at the center of it all, Jesus hung on the cross. Hours had passed, pain stretched beyond what words can hold, breath by breath, moment by moment. And then, at 3 in the afternoon, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, my God, why have you forsaken me?" It's one of the most raw, most human, most powerful moments in the entire story. Not quiet, not controlled, but loud, honest, real, a cry that echoes through time, because it touches something we all feel, that sense of distance, of silence, of asking why when things don't make sense. And yet, even in that cry, there is connection, because he still says, my God, not a God, not the God, but my God. Even in the feeling of separation, there is relationship. Some of those standing nearby misunderstood. They said, listen, he's calling Elijah. They thought he was reaching out for rescue, for intervention, for something to stop what was happening. Someone ran, filled a sponge with wine vinegar, put it on a staff and offered it to Jesus to drink. Now leave him alone. Let's see if Elijah comes to take him down, they said. They were watching, waiting, curious, but still not understanding. Because what was happening in that moment was not about rescue, it was about completion. Then Jesus gave a loud cry and breathed his last. That was it. No long speech, no final defense, just a cry and then silence. The moment everything paused, the moment everything shifted, the moment the Son of God died. From the outside, it looked like defeat, like loss, like the end of something powerful. But something else happened at that exact moment. Something unseen, but incredibly significant. The curtain of the temple was torn in two, from top to bottom, not by human hands, not from the bottom up, but from top to bottom. This curtain separated the holy place from the most holy place. It represented distance, separation, the barrier between God and humanity. Only the high priest could enter, and only once a year. It was sacred, untouchable, unbreakable, until that moment. When Jesus died, the barrier was removed, access was opened. Separation was broken. That's what the tearing of the curtain meant. Not just a physical change, but a spiritual one. A new way, a new connection, a new reality. Because through his death, something that had always been distant became accessible. Something that had always been restricted became open. And at the foot of the cross, a Roman centurion stood watching, not a disciple, not a follower, not someone who had heard the teachings or seen the miracles, just a soldier, an observer, someone used to death, used to execution, used to power. And yet, something about this moment was different. Something about the way Jesus died, the way he carried himself, the way everything unfolded, made him say, surely this man was the Son of God. Think about that. In the middle of darkness, in the middle of death, in the middle of what looked like defeat, recognition happened. Not from those who had followed him for years, but from someone who had just witnessed the moment. Because truth has a way of revealing itself, even in the most unexpected places, even to the most unlikely people. There were also women watching from a distance, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James the younger and of Joseph, and Salome. They had followed Jesus, supported him, stayed near. Even now they were there, not in the spotlight, not in the center, but present, faithful, watching, witnessing. Because sometimes faith doesn't look loud, it doesn't look powerful. It looks like staying, like not leaving, like remaining, even when everything feels lost. This moment, the death of Jesus, is one of the most difficult to understand because it holds so much weight, so much pain, so much meaning. It's not easy to look at, not easy to process, but it's essential because without this moment, there is no completion, no fulfillment, no redemption. Jesus didn't just suffer, he didn't just endure. He gave his life completely, fully, intentionally, and that changes everything. Because it means this wasn't taken from him, it was given freely, willingly, for a purpose that goes beyond the moment, beyond the cross, beyond the darkness. Because this moment leads somewhere, it opens something, it begins something new. The cry, the breath, the silence, the torn curtain, the recognition, all of it points to something deeper, something greater, something that continues. Because death was not the end, it was the doorway, the turning point, the place where everything changed. But in that moment, standing at the cross, none of that was fully visible. All they saw was the end. And maybe that's where this connects to us. Because we all face moments that feel like endings, moments where something breaks, where something stops, where something is lost. And in those moments, we don't always see what comes next. We don't always understand what's unfolding. We just feel the weight, the silence, the question of why. Jesus entered that space fully. He didn't avoid it. He didn't bypass it. He went through it. And because he did, it means we are not alone in those moments. It means that even in the darkest places, there is presence, there is purpose, there is something more than what we see. The death of Jesus is not just a moment of sorrow, it's a moment of transformation, of transition, of something being completed, so that something else can begin. And that's the message that carries forward, that even when something ends, it may not be the end of the story, that even when darkness comes, it doesn't have the final word, that even when silence fills the space, something deeper may be happening. Something unseen, something eternal. Jesus breathed his last, but the story didn't stop there. And because of that, neither does yours. Thank you for watching this video. If this message spoke to your heart, don't forget to like, follow the channel, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it today.